Hi, everyone, and welcome to Facebook Live. We are here tonight to have race director Julie Madison talk to us about how to swim with an escort. We will have question and answers afterwards, but let me introduce Julie for those of you who don't know her. Julie Madison is the race director for the Fresh Start Swim Series. She's a swim coach and an open water distance swimmer. She recently completed the first known solo circumnavigation of Anna Maria Island, which is about double the distance of Honeymoon Island. To help swimmers and kayakers who have never done a distance swim, we decided to do a question and answer interview so that Julie could share some of her hard-won experience and potentially make the Honeymoon Island swim or any other marathon distance swim just a bit more manageable. Julie, if you could please start with some of your learning experiences from some of the past races and swims that you've done, that would be great.
Hey, Lynn, thank you so much for having me on tonight. I really appreciate having the chance to talk with you again. So first, let me start by saying when I started open water swimming, I thought that there was nothing to swimming with a kayaker. My first impression of swimming with a kayaker was just I would go swim, they would come find me, they'd stay near me, and everything would be fantastic for the entire race. And I had other coaches give me suggestions and tell me their advice. And I'm like, no, I've got this. Don't you worry about me. And I learned very quickly that I was mistaken. Very, very quickly. So the first mistake that I made in open water swimming was up in Vermont. It was a 10-mile open water swim. We pretty much swam up to the Canadian border, across the Canadian border, and back down. And I had had a lot of people tell me, oh, you should really try out your foods beforehand. I'm like, you know what? I know what I like. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do nuts and I'm going to do water and we'll be fine. I can't eat solid foods while I'm swimming.
So you were chewing nuts during your feed breaks?
I tried it once.
Walnuts, yeah.
I tried it once. Couldn't get anything down. And just like that, I went from having a really solid food plan to having no food for 6 hours.
Wow, you had no backup plan. You thought this.
Yeah. Okay. Why would I have I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. Okay.
I had food. I didn't just have the nuts though. I had backup food too. I had some granola bars. Went down about the same way, which was not the wrappers, all sorts of issues. Mm-hmm. So really the first learning experience I had was you really, really want to do liquid calories if you can. Mm-hmm. It's important. You can do the gels, you can do water with electrolytes and different hydration stuff, but sticking to liquids was the most important thing I learned during that 10-mile experience. Mm-hmm. The second one that I had at Alligator Lighthouse was that, I didn't need to tie my food to my kayak because all my kayaker had to do was pull up right next to me and they'd be able to hand it over to me. And, it was okay that my food was in the bag because it was on the kayaker and my kayaker would totally have time to get the food out of my bag. Okay. The winds were so intense that every time my kayaker stopped to get the food out of my bag, he would drift further and further away. Ooh. And he couldn't throw it to me because it was one, out of his reach, and two, even if it had been in his reach, it wasn't attached to the kayak. So if he had gotten it to me, I wouldn't have been able to get it back to him. Okay. So that was a really important learning experience to realize. And that gave me up until that point, I had put a lot of faith in my kayaker's ability was going to be way stronger than my own. Mm-hmm. And I had never contemplated that I would be in conditions that were stronger than what my kayaker could handle. Mm-hmm. And that was a very big learning curve. We both completed the swim, but that was a very, very big learning curve for me.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, I do want to show other swimmers what I use now.
Okay.
It's just a rope with a carabiner attached to both ends.
Okay.
So one end can clip onto the food.
Mm-hmm.
The other goes onto the kayak. It's about 10 to 15 feet long. That way my kayaker can throw it in the water, paddle in front of me, and be 10 feet in front of me, and I can still get my water bottle. If you leave a little bit of air in the bottle, you should make sure that your bottle floats, because otherwise that's not going to work either.
Yeah. Show me that bottle again. What is your lid like? Do you take the time to screw it off, or do you pop it and just drink it down?
I just pop it and drink it down.
Okay.
I would look at your plan for any swimmers that are doing any distance swimming. I would look at your plan and I would make whatever you're doing easier than it already is.
Okay.
So really look for whatever's going to cut out time. Because if you think, oh, I'm going to have time to unscrew this, that costs you energy and that costs you time. And even if you're not going for race pace, I want to win it all, I want to win my age group, you're just going for completion. Mm-hmm. Anything that costs you time and costs you energy takes the chance of you completing the swim and reduces it. Mm-hmm. So
and the potential for not being able to line it up quick enough to screw it in. What if it's like crooked? You're messing with it and you're just wasting time.
Yeah, that's
I wasted time on Goose, a very bad brand that didn't open with my hands. And I'm like, oh, and you know, the goo tasted good, but I'll never buy that brand again because it does not easily open.
Yep. Yeah. And checking that stuff, even if you're like, you know what, of course I can open it on land when my hands are dry.
Yeah.
I'm standing still.
Yeah.
Try it in the pool. Tread water. Try it in the pool. Get your hands wet, because your hands are going to be wet. If you can't open it with your hands wet, then you're not going to be able to open it. So I think that that's huge. Yeah. As far as plans go. And as I said, you know, you can do whatever you want. This is all my learning experience. Yeah. But having something that's attached to the kayak and easy to change out for the kayaker. So if I'm going to do a longer swim, I'll have the bottles kind of in their footwell. So all they have to do is grab the bottle. They don't have to dig through a bag. They don't have to do any of that junk. All they have to do is grab it. The bag can be open in front of them, but all they have to do is reach in, grab, take the one that's behind them, switch it out, and go. And that way, if for some reason I'm doing a swim where I need more nutrition than that one bottle, it's a very easy change out for my kayaker. Mm-hmm.
And you even have to be aware of trash. You know, the kayakers probably should, if you're tearing something up, you know, be careful that it doesn't go back into the water.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Do you want to move on with some of the questions I have here? What is the key purpose of the kayaker in an event?
I would absolutely love to move on to that. So the key purpose of our kayakers for events is navigation. The swimmer's visibility is next to nothing, especially if there's wave, especially if there's chop. It takes a lot for a swimmer to trust a kayaker. So making sure that the kayaker and the swimmer talk beforehand, come up with a plan, and that swimmer can trust the kayaker for that navigation. That is the primary purpose of the kayaker. They have other purposes, but really making sure that kayaker is making the adjustments for the wind, sighting that straight line instead of kind of wiggling with the swimmer. Kayakers, please, please, please don't follow your swimmers. Mm-hmm. Pretty much, if you put your hand up to your eye and you kind of really squeeze in, that's about what we can see. Yeah. If that. So really realizing that they've got no clue where they're going and that you actually have to be in the right position for them to see you appropriately is really important throughout that swim.
So you would recommend that the kayaker know the route of the swim that day. Don't just show up at the event and think you're going to follow a faster swimmer and kayaker. You yourself should know what you're getting into and where you're going, where the start and finish is, and and we'll get into you've got a map to show of Honeymoon Island here when we get to that. But the kayaker is kind of like a leader. The swimmer is not the leader. The kayaker is not really the support person, although that's what we call it. The kayaker is the leader.
Yeah, they really are, and it's totally a team effort. The swimmer really should know what they're doing as well. And actually, so I was just up at Fort DeSoto, and I made an attempt at Fort DeSoto. I didn't get it, but that's not here or there. And me and my kayaker started at different locations. And so I was going to meet my kayaker and kind of go around. So I start swimming, and then I see him, and then I kind of see him like waving. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he can see me, and he's like pointing, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'll just keep going. He'll catch up. And he caught up to me. And I was supposed to go around Fort DeSoto, and I wound up on Shell Key.
Okay.
Because once he got there, I thought I knew where I was going.
Yeah.
I was up against, and we swam for maybe 500 yards up against Shell Key. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep swimming. He's with me. He didn't say anything else. And we were just going for it. And I look up, and he's like, hey, just so you know, I think that Fort DeSoto is that way.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh,
yeah.
Okay. I probably should have listened a little bit better to what you were trying to communicate.
Every swim is a learning adventure. If we're not learning something new, then we're not paying attention, Yeah.
It's all opportunities.
It is.
So that was a really good one. And
All right. So you're saying the main purpose of the kayaker is navigation. What if you have a swimmer that insists on going right or left in a certain direction? The swimmer wants to make the choice.
Yeah. So kayakers, I apologize in advance, we're extremely belligerent. As I just pointed out, we think we know where we're going, despite the fact that we can't see pretty much everything. And so the best way to get the swimmer's attention is first to wave at them and continue to wave at them. And if you can have that conversation beforehand and say, hey, if you see me waving, I'm not saying hi.
Yeah.
Really have that conversation with them. Say, if I'm waving, I'm not saying hi. I need you to look at me.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
If you have that conversation, the swimmer will be like, wait, they're waving. I need to pop my head up. We need to have a conversation. Once that swimmer pops their head up, they are much easier to talk into doing something. Yeah. Because we'll make that realization once we just stop. But as we're swimming, we're so focused on swimming that we're really not focused on anything else around us.
Now, some swimmers might not even hear the kayak, or some people have earplugs in, two caps on. Should the kayaker maybe have a whistle to blow? Should the kayaker bang his kayak three times or something to get attention? What do you recommend when the swimmer can't be reached?
Yeah, and your waving isn't working. Yeah. I actually recommend kind of angling the kayak just slightly in front of the swimmer and doing it gently, but getting a little bit in the swimmer's way. So as you mentioned, some swimmers wear earplugs. With the sound of the waves hitting the swimmer's ear, a lot of times we can't hear stuff. And out on a race course, whistles signify distress.
Okay.
So you don't actually want to be using a whistle to try to get your swimmer's attention, because you're also going to get our jet skiers' attention. Okay. And we're going to think that your swimmer's in distress. So you really just want to guide the kayak a little bit in front of them. And if they hitch, they'll probably wind up hitting you, and they'll be mad about it. They'll come up and they'll be like, why are you in my way? And you're like, yeah, because you're about to hit something.
Yeah, but you got their attention. I noticed my husband does that. He kind of will get himself in a position. I'm like, yeah, And
that's really what they're supposed to do, because they're in charge of navigation, which means they're in charge. You should be following him. So if you see them kind of coming closer, you should be like, oh, I kind of need to go that way or that way. And just kind of changing that tip. The swimmer, that's the only thing that we can see, is the tip of that kayak or the back of that kayak. So if you start to angle it, we'll see that and we'll follow that, because we don't want to get hit either. So really, that's the best way to make sure quickly that you can change our course, because out on the course you can potentially have issues. There could be underwater debris that the kayakers can see, but the swimmers can't. There could be crab traps. There could be pylons. The swimmer could be swimming directly at it and not be able to see it. And I guarantee you, swimmers and kayakers, your swimmer will much prefer running into your kayak, even if it hurts a little bit, than running into whatever else is on that course.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband has done that with me, positioned the kayak and said, hey, wait, there's fishing line all over the place. And he lifted it up for me to pass.
Yep.
So that's good. That's good. Yes. The kayaker to be kind of looking ahead a little bit. Okay. Where should the kayaker be in reference to the swimmer and in reference to the race course?
Yeah. So pretty much our kayakers should always be, if you're doing support kayak, you should be about 10 feet to the right or the left of the swimmer. So being to the right or the left will depend on what course you're on, where the wind's blowing from, where the sun is. I will be what side your swimmer can breathe on. Some swimmers can't breathe to the right or to the left. So having that discussion with your swimmer beforehand and knowing, oh, if I'm on their right side, they can't see me because they're never looking over there. Knowing that if the sun is directly behind the kayaker, so if the sun's to the east and the kayaker's to the east and the sun's directly behind them, that swimmer can't see that kayaker.
Yeah.
All we can see is the glare of the sun. So putting the swimmer to the west instead, or putting the kayaker to the west instead, in that situation is best. Wind, you've got to play it by ear. Because some wind you can kind of protect the swimmer from if the kayaker's on the side that the wind's blowing in from, but the wind can also be wind and waves can be so strong that if you're not far enough away, the kayak can blow into the swimmer. So really judging those conditions and figuring out where the best place to be is. You do not, during the entire swim, the kayaker should be in position where when the swimmer turns their head to breathe, the kayaker can make eye contact.
Okay.
Is the best place for that kayaker, because that's where the kayaker can see if the swimmer's in distress. So if I'm turning and all of a sudden I look and my swimmer's not there, I can stop and figure out what's wrong. Why are they falling behind? And that's where the swimmer can see if that kayaker makes that slight adjustment to the right or to the left. The swimmer can see that and adjust before having to get hit by the kayak.
Yeah. Do you recommend, as people get more skilled and they want to spend more time in the open water, that they learn bilateral breathing or that they become comfortable on both sides?
I highly recommend bilateral, being able to breathe unilaterally on either side.
Yeah.
Because, and that's actually how I trained for the longest time. When I was training indoors, I always swam one lap on my right and one lap on my left. And being able to do that in diverse race conditions is extraordinarily helpful.
I think it lends to safety all around if you're able to do that.
Yep.
All right. Are there any other kayaker responsibilities? I think we talked about that. Any other kayaker responsibilities? Should each person be carrying a cell phone, each kayaker?
Every kayaker should have a cell phone because you don't know when you're going to need it, even especially on ocean swims, because we're going to do whatever every race director does whatever they can to make the swim as passable as possible. And they do their best to make the calls beforehand that will lead to the highest percentage of swimmers completing the course and swimmers not having to get pulled out. We do not want to have to rescue you.
Right, exactly.
And we don't want to have to rescue your kayaker. So if we notice that the winds are likely to pick up past what most kayakers can handle, keeping in mind most kayakers can't handle more than 10 to 12 winds if it's open water golf.
Yeah. You
can't paddle into it. It'll beat you 10 times to Sunday. And that's really strong kayakers. And that's not a lot of wind. If you think, like, that's not a lot of wind. So being aware that that's pretty much the max that those kayaks can do, because swimmers are like, oh, I'll swim in 30-mile. Yeah, you can swim in it. You just can't have
it's different. The kayaker's perspective is a completely different from the swimmers. Completely different. Yep. Other responsibilities, I don't think that there's any requirement that a kayaker has to have. There's no licensing, there's no classes, but when the weather gets a little bit better, I know we want to take a safety class, what to do if your kayak capsizes.
So actually, I can help out with that a little bit. I've actually had to rescue kayakers in the Gulf who were out there playing around, flipped over their kayakers. So the biggest thing with the kayaks is trying to flip it over from the side instead of the front or the back.
Okay.
So once that kayak flips over, you want to go either to the right or to the left side, hold on to the front and lean and pull backwards. And the kayak will just right itself.
Okay, wait, describe that again. So you're
so the kayak is going to be here and it's the long way.
All right.
And you put your hands on and pull, lean back.
Okay.
And then the kayak will just roll over.
Okay.
Your head. Yep.
Sounds good. Kayaker responsibility to have everything or as much as possible secured on the kayak with ropes, with some type of bungee cord. So if you do tip over, you're not losing like a $400 pair of glasses.
Yeah. You're not losing your glasses. You're not losing your cell phone.
Yeah.
You just tipped over. Now your cell phone's at the bottom of the ocean. That's not going to be conducive for saving, calling for help, etc. So really, I think one of the biggest mistakes that gets made is you assume that you're not going to flip over.
Yeah.
Assume that you're going to flip over. Secure everything. Secure all the food, all the bags, all the cell phones. Your keys should be in a dry bag.
Yeah.
Making sure all of that is going to float. So if it's attached to the kayak, it will float. And not getting separated from your kayak is huge. So having that extra leash on the back where if it starts to move a little bit, you're close enough where you can grab it.
Yeah.
Really can help in an emergency situation.
All right. I got a question for you. If a kayaker is renting, should they do a little quick inspection and not just assume, oh, I'll just put it in the water? Should they kind of just look for little cracks and tears? When someone's renting a kayak, what should they look for?
Yeah, you want to make sure that the hull's intact. So if there are any cracks, water's going to get into that kayak even faster, and that's going to sink it. So you want to make sure that your equipment's together. Same thing for the paddles. You want to make sure that your paddle doesn't have any broken pieces on it. Sometimes what can happen with kayak paddles is you kind of stick them together and you'll have the right side and the left side. But sometimes there's a piece that kind of, you can move it around and you can have a paddle that either both are flat or one's kind of like this and one's kind of like that. But if that piece gets stuck, either they'll fall apart or it'll just keep spinning. So making sure that they're stuck in the position that you want it is
very important.
Yeah, important.
Do you recommend, I don't kayak often, so I don't know if you have a little wristband on it in case it flies out of your hand. Do you recommend a little attachment so you're not going to lose it in the water? Or
so you don't normally have that, but that's actually something where if I'm stopping and getting food, I will tuck the paddle either under my leg if I'm in a single, or if I'm in a tandem, I'll tuck my paddle underneath the seat in front of me and then lodge the paddle into the seat next to me. So that way the front and the back of the paddle are totally parallel and totally on the boat. The other thing that you can do is you can take the rope that you have for food and just kind of tie that around it before you stop for food. So my rope is long enough where I can do that and it won't significantly impact my range.
Oh, that's great. That's a good little tip because you might get distracted when you stop for feeds.
Yep. And you're worried about the swimmer. The other thing that you can do with the feed bottle is you can put it behind the second swimmer.
Okay.
So all the kayak has to do, they don't even have to touch the food. The swimmer just swims up to that little section behind the kayaker, can grab the bottle right off the back. Okay. And the kayaker doesn't have to let go of anything.
Okay. I want to ask a question that's kind of picky. For some events, the swimmers are not allowed. They can get disqualified if they go up to the kayak and actually hang on the kayak or touch it. For the Honeymoon Island race, are you allowing people to grab something from behind the kayak, or is this going to be strict that everything should be thrown out to the swimmer?
So we're not going to be super ticky-tacky. We just don't have the personnel. I mean, we're a brand new race. We don't have the personnel to disqualify. Ideally, I mean, even if you use the trick that I just mentioned, that shouldn't disqualify you, because you don't, as a swimmer, you don't have to touch that kayak to grab that bottle off the kayak.
Yeah.
You can do that and still maintain channel rules, and that's really what you should be doing. That being said, because of the distance, because of the swim and making sure that all of our swimmers are safe, if you need the kayak, rest on the kayak. Yeah. If you're resting on the kayak, it's a small race. You're not in jeopardy. You're not one of the swimmers that's in jeopardy of winning.
Okay, good.
You know, you're probably not placing anyways. So just take the rest if you need it, gain the confidence, and go from there.
Enjoy it. And you want everybody to finish. We want everybody to finish it.
Yeah. I mean, for this race, I'd much rather have you finish. I'd rather have you have fun. Like,
yes.
Have fun with it. This is a fun race. This should be a fun race. This should be a great learning experience. And I don't want to get ticky-tacky. As I said, I don't want to get ticky-tacky with, I do ask that kayakers be aware if the swimmer's on them and they don't make forward progress.
Yeah, of course. Pay attention. Pay attention out there. All right, we've been talking a lot about the kayaker and the kayaker's responsibilities. Okay, there's a lot. That's a lot for the kayakers. What about the swimmers? What are some more of the swimmers' responsibilities that you would like to talk about?
First responsibility of that swimmer is to trust their kayaker. If your kayaker's trying to communicate with you and you disagree with them, on that course, it goes to the kayaker. They might be wrong, but you need to trust them. And after the race, you can discuss what went wrong, how to improve next time, get better at that point. But on the course, that kayaker is there for your safety. They have the best visuals. They're the ones who can make those decisions. So if they say, hey, look, this is going on and we need to call it, that's actually the kayaker's call. And that swimmer needs to respect the kayaker in those moments. The other responsibility of the swimmer is to be aware that the kayaker is there for temporary relief, not as their rescue.
Okay. So you're telling me that's showing me that we have 3 weeks left. Swimmers should train and be ready to do this 100% on your own. You're not going to give up and be towed by the kayaker. What if it's windy? The kayaker might not be able to tow you. You have to be ready to do this.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that we won't help out. If we see a swimmer in distress, we will help out. Right. But being rescued by a single kayak sucks.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where, so I was in one situation where I went for a 3-mile swim. I got hypothermia halfway through and I had to get rescued by my paddleboarder.
Okay. So
it was 2 people on a single person paddleboard for 1.5 miles.
Ooh. And that's a 300-pound weight limit. What is the weight limit on a paddleboard? So that
way less than what we were putting on it.
Yeah.
So it was sinking. It was slow going. It was not easy on my paddleboarder, and it wasn't easy on me.
You were still cold.
Because I'm still cold.
Yeah.
So that really taught me, not that you can't ever be in a position that you need to get rescued, but really having the confidence and the ability to do it yourself and use the kayaker more for that guide, more for that support aspect than being your rescuer aspect.
Okay, so what if a swimmer is in distress? How should the swimmer communicate this? First, the kayaker should know signs of distress. Maybe you can discuss what some possible signs of distress if you're seeing your swimmer, or what can the swimmer do to.
Yeah, so the first sign of distress for a swimmer is always the swimmer's stroke falls apart.
Okay.
So even not the best swimmers, if their stroke was bad, it gets worse. If it was mediocre, it gets bad. If it was good, it gets mediocre. The first sign of distress is that swimmer's stroke falling apart. And a lot of times swimmers who are not in distress will swim continuously. Swimmers that are starting to get into distress will stop, pick their head up, look around, and then go back down. And then about another 10 or 15 strokes, they'll stop, totally let their body position fall, look around, and then keep going. That is your first sign of distress. And if you start to notice that, you really need to have that conversation with your swimmer to figure out what they're feeling and what's going on to make them stop like that. And for the swimmer, if you notice yourself doing that, where you're swimming, picking your head up, looking around, you need to run a self-diagnostic test. What's freaking you out? What are you feeling? Because that could range anywhere from stomach distress to dizziness to cold to I'm just lost and I don't know where I am, or the waves are too strong and I'm not used to this type of current, or there's a lot of things that'll make you pick your head up and be like, wait a second. So figuring that out and then telling your kayaker, hey, where am I? Hey, I'm starting to feel dizzy. And having that conversation, not just putting your head back down and swimming until it really, really becomes a problem, because it can become a problem very quickly. So part of kayak, like that kayak team relationship, is both of you've got to stay calm. So if you can get that at the beginning and cut off before that panic sets in, because, oh, my head hurts a little bit, to, oh my God, I can't even see because my head hurts so bad. If you can stop it beforehand, get the person at least hanging onto the kayak calmly, that can be a preventative measure where now the kayaker is trying to figure out, well, do I jump in and say, like, it really solves a lot if the swimmer communicates, it stops early. And as I said, if you need to hang on to the kayak.
Right.
It's okay. You know, as I said, this isn't the English Channel. Yes, we'd prefer you to finish without touching the kayak. But if you're at the point where you're like super distressed, then all of a sudden you're getting pulled, you're not finishing anyways. So, and if you stop that early enough, if you have that conversation early enough, it can totally prevent you and talk you down. So especially like with the waves being overwhelming and the current overwhelming, if your kayaker can say, hey, look, you're doing great, just get your head down and keep swimming. Because that's really what, if you start looking around and you're like, this is all overwhelming, if you can get your head down and just keep swimming, there is a 98% chance that you can just get through it. Whereas if every time you stop, you start to take on more water, you get out of alignment, you waste energy, you get tired, you get frustrated because now you're not going anywhere. Get your head down and just swim.
Right.
And that will get you out of most of your problem situations. Most of your issues are going to come from you panicking.
All right. Okay. And I guess a conversation has to be had between the swimmer and the kayaker. At what point, what would we do if I, the swimmer, feel I had to stop swimming? Kayaker, will they have a phone number to the race director? Do you make a signal that you need a rescue? You probably have the phone number.
Yeah. So if the swimmer and the kayaker both decide, you know what, this is going to involve a rescue, the first thing to do is get the swimmer holding on gently to the kayaker. So ideally, the swimmer swims over nice and easy, just wraps their arms around the very front of the kayak and stays low to the water.
Okay.
What this will do is it will keep the kayak stable so that the swimmer does not accidentally flip the kayak over.
Okay.
So then the kayaker can approach from the front, the swimmer just wraps their arms around, and ideally the swimmer should kind of like lift their legs up towards the bottom of the kayak.
Okay.
So, and actually that is the best way to do if you have to do a kayak rescue, that's the best way to do it too, because it increases the stability of the kayak and decreases the drag of the swimmer.
That's interesting. I thought maybe would they hang on to something on the back of the kayak and the kayaker starts kayaking, you know?
So that is a way to do it. The problem with that is a lot of times when swimmers hang on to the back, they kind of get up onto that little seat area. And when the swimmer gets on there, it makes the kayak really, really tippy. And if you're in waves, it's going to send the kayaker right over. Or the kayaker is going to have to say, hey, I need you to get off because you're tipping the kayak, which you don't want to say to a swimmer in distress.
Right. All right.
You really want
to
be.
That was very helpful. All right. So we talked about what you recommend for nutrition, liquids.
Hold on. I do want to go back just one quick second. So once that swimmer is safely secured to the kayaker should, one, place a call to the race director. The second thing or if you guys are out doing this on your own, it should be the Coast Guard.
Okay.
So before you go out, you should always have the Coast Guard's number in your phone. The second thing to do is to raise your paddle and wave it in the air, because that will signal to the people that are on the course, the jet skis and EMS, that your swimmer is in distress, and that will be your fastest way to get help.
Okay. That's great. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you want to talk any more about nutrition as far as it's a trial and error, whether you want Gatorade, electrolytes, whether you want water only, whether you want goos, whether you want a homemade smoothie or.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, nutrition, I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't want to go too deep into nutrition. The only thing I will say is, one, test whatever you're doing before you go to your swim. Two, make sure that you can do it while you're swimming. After that, whatever you like is totally up to you. But really making sure that you can access your food and you can eat your food and you're not going to be throwing your food back up is imperative. I've had a few swims where I've had GI distress, and it is extremely painful. You don't want to be there. And on that note, you do not want to take too much food in too fast.
Oh.
You want to be very careful. So for a water bottle of this size.
Is that 24 ounces? What is that?
I believe it's 24. Okay. So 24-ounce water bottle. You do not want to have more than this much per stop.
Is that a third or a fourth of that?
It's about a fourth.
That's 6 ounces.
Yeah.
Okay. About 6 ounces.
Yeah, 6 to 8 ounces, no more than that.
Yeah.
Because you will really start to feel it. As far as timing goes for feeding, for swims that are over a 10K, what you're going to do is you're going to feed about once an hour for the first 2 to 3 hours. And then you're going to drop that down to once every 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yep. And keeping in mind that you can only absorb, I believe it's about 300 calories per hour.
Okay. All right. So are you ready to take a look at the Honeymoon Islands course?
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go. All right. This slide is a little bit busy, but Julie's going to break it down, and we'll summarize at the end the most important points. And you can stop the screen and look at this and I'm going to have this on my website, Lynn Griesmer. So if you really want to take a closer look, we'll put it out there. It'll be there for you. All right.
Awesome. This map is also up on the Fresh Start Swim Series page as well.
Okay.
And I will be emailing it out on the Friday before the swim, along with more detailed instructions to really make sure that everyone is all set with this. But let's start with the photo on the left, the start and the finish area. That is going to be in between North Beach and Oasis Beach. Or actually, I'm sorry. So the start finish area, this is going to be on North Beach, and then the beach south is Oasis Beach, which is where the kayaks are going to load from.
Okay.
And in between, if you take a look, oh, it's actually not on this one. But actually, yeah. So if you take a look to the right picture, there's a little yellow area that says kayak start and finish area. That's Oasis Beach. So all the kayakers will load and finish at that area.
All right.
So pretty much swimmers are going to start. We would like to suggest that kayakers space out between those two. There are going to be piles of riprap or rock, and just kind of space out in that area. We want to make sure that all the swimmers have space. And if you're kayaking in a race, please remember that the swimmers have the right of way.
Okay.
So if your swimmer is swimming next to a swimmer, your job is to make sure that you don't hit either swimmer.
Okay.
So you need to be far enough to the right and far enough to the left where you're not in the way. And keep in mind that I know that you want to be next to your swimmer, but if there are 3 or 4 swimmers that are kind of packed together and there's one kayak on the right and one kayak on the left, they're really getting the support they need as far as navigation goes. If that swimmer needs food and nutrition, they can break off from the pack and come to you. Please don't try to get into that swimmer pack to give your swimmers nutrition.
And it can get a little hairy at the beginning of some of these races, and it'll thin out. And so just don't panic and don't be in a hurry. You don't have to be 10 feet away right off the bat from your swimmer. Yep. I have a question for you. I swam an event in Tennessee, and there were, I don't know if there were 300 or 400 people in it. And the swimmers started and all the kayaks were downstream a little bit. And some people had like balloons on the back, helium balloons on the back of their kayak. They had ways you could easily distinguish. So don't worry about it. The swimmer should at least know what color is your kayak, what color shirt is the kayaker wearing, and that, you know, kayakers should generally know the stroke of their swimmer to be able, so that you'll meet up with each other. And it may take just a few minutes, but don't panic. And is it okay to have little balloons off the end of your kayak or a little something, flag?
So you can have things off of the end of your kayak. I don't recommend balloons because they are horrible.
They are. If they get loose, they're an environmental nightmare.
And even if they don't get loose, they're an environmental nightmare. So I really try to recommend, first of all, knowing your kayakers, the color of your kayak. Right. So knowing if it's one of the 3 red ones, one of the 3 blue ones, and then bringing a few different color shirts. Mm-hmm. Bring a white shirt, bring a bright yellow shirt, bring a blue shirt, see what everyone else is wearing, and then pick a different one. The other thing that you can do is crazy hats.
Oh, good idea.
Slightly different color. It's up. If you have something that's fun, you know, everyone will recognize the swimmer in the cowboy hat.
Yeah.
As long as there's only one, or the kayaker in the cowboy hat. So there's different ways to do it. You can also add, I would prefer to add a flag as opposed to a balloon, but that's just, that's just how I would recommend doing that. And kayakers, do remember that you will have a mile approximately to meet up with your swimmers. So pretty much right where the green triangle is where swimmers and kayakers are going to have to meet up. Swimmers, if you do not have your kayaker by that green triangle, you must wait there until they get there and find you.
Okay.
So we will have someone posted to let the kayakers kind of know that there's swimmers there. It will take some time. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how how this kind of setup goes. But we do ask that swimmers do not proceed around the island, especially because once you get around the very tip of the southern tip of Honeymoon Island, that boat channel gets crazy.
It can, definitely.
So swimmers should not, under any circumstances, proceed around that corner without a kayak.
And so for those who are not familiar with Honeymoon Island, where this green triangle is, it will be marked. It'll be a buoy to the left, and that there's a dog park right here. So before you start going around the dog park and into this area here, before the three green buoys, or markers, I mean, so just, yeah, okay.
Also, where that green triangle is, you must take that buoy on your left. I know it's going to be tempting to try to cut in between the green buoy and the land, but there are underwater concrete pillars there.
Oh, okay.
You will not be able to see them at all.
Ooh,
so,
all right.
Take the buoy to your left,
all right.
And then you can start bringing the shore a little bit closer. Once you're around that green buoy, you actually really do want to move probably 25 feet offshore, because there's going to be a nice little channel that will kind of pull you down into the main channel. But really making sure that you are out to the left of that green buoy is really important.
Okay. Keep the green buoy to the left, proceed, pull in a little bit. And you start going around the dog park, and you got these 3 green markers on your right. Yep. And you're going to go under the first little bridge that you see.
Yes. Right? And just to be aware, that is one of the most interesting aspects of the swim, because the current is extremely unpredictable through there.
Okay.
So being aware that the current will probably push you, there will probably be waves. It'll probably be the roughest aspect of the swim, just because it's unpredictable. And again, like, that's an area where just put your head down, just keep swimming. If your kayaker tells you to go a little bit right or a little bit left, do it, because they're probably telling you where the bridge is.
Yeah. Okay.
So just paying attention to your kayaker and just keep swimming through there is going to be your best bet. And then you're going to pretty much come around. There's going to be some condos. They're right past the bridge. You're going to go to the tip of those the northern tip of those condos. And then there are going to be pylons that are to the left. And they say no motorized vehicles. And you're going to want to aim for the 4th or 5th pylon that's north. And that'll give you a really good angle to sight for the northern tip of the island.
All right.
And you'll just pretty much go up. Once you get to the 4th or 5th pylon, once you're there, just stay about 25 yards off the pylons and just follow the pylons north, and that will take you to the northern tip of the island. Once you're at the northern tip of the island, you're going to stay about 150 yards offshore. If you go too close to shore, and if you're not that 150 yards offshore, it's gonna be too shallow to swim. So make sure that you're far enough out. The other thing that, just informational sake for those who like to plan their swims well, I would not spend a lot of energy worrying about speed till you get to the northern tip of the island, because unfortunately the way that we've had to time the swim, because this is a state park, we had to be extremely conscious of afternoon boat traffic. So for our swim, we have to hit the northern tip earlier than ideal. So there's a chance that swimmers are going to still have an incoming current when they hit it, if they hit it too early.
Okay.
So I would not recommend working. I mean, if you want to take the lead and do whatever you want. But if you get there too early, you're going to spend a lot of time fighting current. And that's just that's just where we're at.
Yeah, whenever you swim around an island, you have four different places, the north and the south and each side. And the tide, one way or another, and depending on your speed, there is going to be a challenge. So you're saying that there could be a little challenge down here at this bridge, maybe a little challenge up here.
Yeah.
And you've set the race time start to maybe have the tide in our favor. So we're kind of getting a push most of the way.
So you're definitely going to get a push, or as it's planned, you're definitely get a really nice push coming in through the channel with the green markers.
Okay.
The tide will be changing, I believe, between 12:30 and 1 o'clock.
Okay.
At the northern tip. So, and we're leaving at 9 o'clock. So for swimmers that swim a little bit faster than 2 miles an hour, they're going to hit that a little bit earlier than 1 o'clock.
Okay.
And that's where, you really just don't want to hit that before 1 o'clock if you can help it.
Yeah.
Or you can really enjoy the extra challenge of having that incoming tide.
Sure.
It's totally up to you. That's where it's going to be. So plan your swim however makes you happy. I just like to make sure that everyone knows as much information as they can before we get there. So anyways, once you go around the northern tip, you're going to head south. Please keep the buoys very close to your left-hand side. We may still have swimmers on the course from the 2 mile, even though I doubt it. But just really do your best to follow the line of the buoys.
Okay.
And then as you come down, we hit the finish area. There will be one pile of riprap that you need to go around. And then before you hit, there's two piles. Yeah, two piles of riprap, and then you go in between the second and third piles of riprap for your finish.
Right. Not to worry. I feel like we've been focusing on the 8 mile solo swim around the island. Do you have how many events going on that day for Honeymoon Island?
So we have 3 events going on. We have a 2 mile event and a 4 mile event. The 2 mile is going to be from the start finish area 1 mile north. And then the 4 mile is going to be from the start finish area 2 miles north and back.
Okay.
And I've had a lot of questions about why we require a kayaker for the 4 mile, because it's rare to have a 4 mile require a kayak or paddle support. And the reason why we're doing that for this swim is because Honeymoon's a state park. There can be a lot of boat traffic that pulls into the swim zone. Mm-hmm. And we don't have the support staff for me to feel like we can adequately patrol and defend 2 miles for all of our swimmers. And, all it takes is one boater who's counting and says, oh, don't worry about it. I got it. There's 3 swimmers right over to the left, and they miss the one swimmer that's right in front of them. Mm-hmm. And visually, it's just there. If you get a lot of swimmers, the boaters are looking at the dolphins and don't see the swimmers. The boaters are seeing the swimmers and don't care. There's just so many aspects that we can't control. And because this is such a popular destination and such a beautiful place to go swimming, I really feel that having a kayaker for the 4 mile was the better part of valor, just to ensure our swimmers are safe.
That's great. Is there any reason to fear jet ski traffic here? Are there rentals along Honeymoon Island for jet ski? You might get it along this side of the island for sure. Boats, jet skis. You might see some on this side, but
I am hoping that. Oh boy. It's okay, buddy. I am really hoping that we can get our swimmers through the jet ski areas sooner rather than later. But it is always good to be very cautious of boat traffic in these types of areas. And I always recommend for kayakers and paddle boarders, if you see a boat that's coming at you, get as close to the swimmer as you can, and almost angle almost in front of them, because boaters can be unpredictable. Sometimes they're distracted. Sometimes sometimes there's boaters that will, not specifically this area, just in general, but there are boaters that will aim towards paddle boarders to try to flip them over.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Evil. That's evil. Horrible.
And all of a sudden there's a swimmer in the water that they had no clue was there. And they're coming 10 to 15 feet in. That's where the swimmers swim.
Wow.
So really being aware that people can be stupid when they think they're trying to be funny, and doing your best to prepare for that. So really sticking close with the kayaker and the swimmer, especially if you see a boat heading your direction. Just be aware, pay attention to what they're looking at. A lot of boat captains, if they see you, they'll wave. That lets you know that they've seen you, they're going to respect you. I like to wave back. Thank you for letting me know that you've seen me. So I wouldn't say it's something to fear, but I would absolutely say it's something to pay attention to. Anywhere you swim. Yep.
All right. That's great. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up soon. Does anybody have any questions that you'd like Julie to answer? I don't really see any comments here. Just one from Steve, who says, excellent information. Thanks so much. You're welcome. And I don't see any other comments, but, anything else that you want to point out about this race, about kayakers, swimmers, Honeymoon Island? Wait, I have a question. I thought the park opened at 8 a.m., but I saw on your website 7 a.m. Are they making an arrangement?
We are making an arrangement. We will be able to get in at 7 a.m. The 4-mile swim does start at 8 o'clock.
Okay. So it starts at 8. Be ready to go. Okay. All right. We have a question. Wetsuit or no wetsuit? And what do you think the temperature of the water is going to be?
My guess. So first of all, any of our races, you are always allowed to wear a wetsuit. It just depends on whether or not you can qualify for awards. Our cutoff is anything 70.9 and below, you're allowed to wear the wetsuit. 71 and above, you are allowed to wear the wetsuit, but you won't qualify for awards.
Okay.
My prediction is for this swim, it will be a non-wetsuit swim.
But what about the choice? What if a person wears a wetsuit in 78 degrees? Can they?
Yeah, you can wear it. And just let the people at registration know that you're going to be wetsuiting it.
Okay.
And you're good.
All right.
Everyone feels comfortable swimming differently. So we like to support anyone who's getting into the open water.
Great. All right. Any other questions? Thank you. That's it. That looks about it. Can you provide coordinates for reference points on the map? Maybe you can put something on your Facebook page, what the coordinates are. Emily, I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Do you want coordinates for the kayaker to know where this is located? Are you coming from out of state? I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you provide coordinates for reference points on the map?
So if you're looking for the actual coordinates, I'm sure we could find that. If that's helpful. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That looks like that's going to be it. Anything else you'd like to add to Swimming with an Escort, information for kayakers and swimmers?
No, I think we did a really good job with covering most of the things that I feel are really important. If anyone has any questions about the swim, as always, you're welcome to reach out to me at freshstartswimseries@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook. I love answering questions about swimming and safety. And I'd much rather have you be safe and ask the question than to do something because you think you know and you don't actually know. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm looking forward to this race and looking forward to all the experiences that you guys have in the open water community.
All right, and I just have one final thing. What can people do during the next 3 weeks to prepare and get ready in the final home stretch before this event?
Stretch. First of all, make sure that you're stretching. Make sure that you're figuring out your nutrition plan and testing it. Do not overdo the mileage. A lot of people try to cram like it's a test that they've been studying for. If you overdo your mileage, you are going to put yourself in a position where you're going to burn out on the swim. So 3 weeks out for a swim like this, you should be maintaining yardage, maybe dropping back a few thousand yards a week starting now, actually. I normally, if I'm going for a swim like this, I'll start really tapering off 2 or 3 weeks before the swim. The week before the swim, I'll do moderate swimming. One thing that I would highly recommend to swimmers is doing your basic rescue stuff. So treading water. What I did prior to a few of my open water swims that I knew were going to be really tough, and I don't know if you'll encounter conditions like this at the swim or not, but I would actually force myself underwater and then work on relaxing and getting back up to the surface to a place I could breathe. And that way, if I got into conditions, I could feel the difference between panic treading water and actually treading water, and practice on getting from that panic situation into a relaxed position and just swimming over to the edge of the pool. And even if you're a fairly experienced or fairly competent pool swimmer, if you've had no open water experience, that is a really good thing to practice before you get into the position that you need it.
Great. Thank you. I'll say, so for those who are joining us late and want to see a copy of this, you can rewatch it on Facebook. I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel called Lynn Griesmer. Thank you so much, Julie. It's been fun. And happy swimming. And I hope everybody has safe travels here who are coming from out of state. It's not too late to sign up for Honeymoon Island, the 2, 4, or the 8 mile. I think there's about at least 125 people participating, swimmers participating.
Yep.
So that's great. And feel free to sign up. We hope the weather's great, and have a good evening. All right.
Have a great evening, everyone.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Bye.